Hello and welcome back to QubaHQ tutorials. My name is Kuba Michalski and today I'm going to teach you how to troll 10,000 people using a video that's going to take you less than half an hour to prepare. Let's have a look at a couple of videos that I uploaded to YouTube over the past months. In here you can see my reel for the year 2011. This is a result of approximately 5 years of work edited together into a single montage. 787 views. Macula Lueta, this independent piece you may remember done with lens flares, that took me about a week to create based on a custom script that I wrote for controlling flares. 152 views. The light wall tutorial, one of the earlier QubaHQ tutorials, lots of work, really cool technique, 974. Stop motion kit, freely distributed kit that helps you do fake stop motion animation in After Effects. 160 views. And let's just look at one more example, floaties, another preset using text animators to create cool particle effects. 1,190 views. Well, that's one of my most viewed videos on YouTube at the moment, unless you count this. This is a fake UFO sighting video that I made around 3 months, I believe, ago, published under a fake persona of the Mahir 1972. You see this number? 10,570 freaking views. And this video took me literally no time to produce, no effort, and it's the most viewed piece that I have on this site at the moment. Let's have a quick look, shall we? This is how the video looks. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Very simple. What I did is I literally grabbed my iPhone, went to the roof of my house, shot the footage of the sky for 30 seconds, well, 45 seconds, came back, did a very quick track on it, placed some fake UFOs, which are actually just a single pixel dots, and uploaded it to YouTube. And the video exploded. It has been featured in UFO magazines. It actually has been verified by some sort of UFO authority that has a chain of websites tracking UFO activity around the world. A complete insanity. For me, it's basically a sign that I managed to beat the system. And today I would like to show you how you can do the same. And hopefully this tutorial will be a call to action that can help us together flood the YouTube with tons of fake UFO sighting videos and maybe freak out some of the UFO fanatics out there. Okay, so this is our source material. It's an MOV shot on an iPhone, as I told you. Very poor quality, which only adds to the flavor of the whole piece. And what I did so far is I exported the wave audio, so I separated the audio track and also exported it as a sequence of TIFF images, so that it's going to be much easier for the tracker to load it up and process it. Now for this tutorial we're not going to be using the After Effects tracker, we're going to use Mocha, which is bundled with After Effects since I believe version CS4. And one of the main reasons for using Mocha is that since the video is of such poor quality, tracking a very small region, which After Effects Tracker does, would produce very, very poor results, full of errors and jiggles, etc. Mocha is a planar tracker. That means it allows us to track a region rather than just a single point. And we can just grab a whole big piece of the sky and use that as a tracking material. And basically the more reference and the more information the tracker has to work with, the better the result will be. So let's not waste any more time, jump into Mocha and start it up. Okay. So here's the Mocha window. If you never used it before, the technique I'm going to show you right now is possibly simplest way of using it. If you're interested, in the future I could develop some more advanced tutorials on this software. It's absolutely fantastic for any kind of replacements, whether you want to put your own billboard on the existing footage or change the footage inside of the mobile phone that is being held by hand, etc. But in here we're just going to use it as a more advanced replacement of the standard tracker that will give us good results. So okay, we click on create new project and import the clip. Here is our TIFF sequence. You just need to click on the first one, just like in After Effects. It will load it up. You can see we have 1300 frames approximately. The important thing is to set the frame rate. Now, I typically work in 25 FPS, but since this video was shot on iPhone, it is at 30 frames a second. And additionally, we need to adjust the pixel aspect ratio, which is 1. We're working with square pixels. Let's click OK. Now, I mean, I've been testing some stuff, so it has the project already there. Do we want to overwrite it? Yes, we're gonna start with the blank slate. Let's locate a frame in which we can see most of the sky and a little bit of this bridge pillar. So I'm just going to drag the timeline in here a little bit, and I think around here could be a good spot. Actually, to be precise, let's go to frame 300. Now we're going to create a new layer, and this is the Create X-Spline Layer tool. Let's zoom in onto a little bit. Yeah, that's how the icon looks. And all I need to do is just draw a shape, approximate shape that's going to grab quite a big piece of sky. Alright? And this is pretty much all the work I'm gonna have to do. The rest will be done by Mocha. Just to get a little bit better track quality, I'm going to go down here and increase the minimum percentage of pixels used. So this will tell Mocha how much of this image to actually analyze and use for the tracking. So right now it's at 30%. It produces decent results, but I'm just gonna pump it up to, let's say, 60%. It's gonna make the tracking a little bit slower, but not by much. Additionally, we want to track translation, scale and rotation, but we don't need the share. There is some shutter lag on the camera, which creates a bit of a wobbliness, but nobody's gonna really see that, so we don't have to worry about it. Okay, so minimum percentage of pixels used 60, translation, scale, rotation. Okay, we're done with the settings. Now in here you have track controls, and since we're somewhere, I wouldn't say in the middle, but somewhere inside the video already, I'm going to track from this point backwards and then from this point forward. So let's just do a backwards track, click the button and watch the results. So as you can see, our entire big region is being tracked, and even though some portions of it may be exiting the screen at the moment, it doesn't matter because Mocha still has enough information on the screen to continue tracking. And this is the big advantage over the standard After Effects tracker. You don't really have to worry about the objects obscuring your tracked element, people passing in front, etc. As long as you're scanning a region large enough, Mocha is gonna be able to take care of it very easily. It's also quite fast, as you can see. We're already at the frame 150, so that means we tracked half of the video, at least of the backward section. Let's just wait a few moments and let it finish. Now, if you look at the video as the frames change, you will probably notice that when the camera moves left and right, we have a bit of a wobble on the footage, and that's because of the shutter on the iPhone camera. It's not a very good camera. I'm using iPhone 3GS, I believe, one of the older models. I'm not really sure what's the quality of 4 or 4S. Not a big follower of Apple products overall. Okay, so the first part of the track is finished, and if I scrub through the timeline, we can see that it's quite precise. There may be a bit of a pixel offset every now and then, but nothing really to worry about. Now, in a moment I'm going to start the track in the opposite direction. I just wanted to show you one thing, which is if we decided to track the bridge, for example, we would run into some problems right in here because it exits the frame. But since we're tracking the entire large piece of sky, Mocha is still going to have enough cloud information to continue tracking. And towards the end of the footage, where is it? I pan the camera to the right, and at that point our tracker region is going to exit the screen and Mocha may even pop out an error. It doesn't really matter because our UFOs would have exited the scene by then. Alright, back to the frame 300, track forward, and this is going to take a short while. When I say short while, I really mean probably around 5 minutes or so. So I'm going to pause the video right now, go brew myself a cup of coffee. This is a good time to basically relax, let the tracker do its job, and I'll see you when it's finished. Alright, yeah, so the track has finished, and as I warned you, we got some errors, and that's because our area of interest has exited the screen and Mocha doesn't know what to do next. We don't really care about it, so just click OK through this one, OK at this one as well, and we can see our result. So basically, very nice clean track following a patch of the sky. Alright, let's open After Effects and start putting this thing together. So first thing I'm gonna do is import our footage, and you may notice my After Effects is set to interpret image sequences at 25 frames per second, so we need to quickly change it. Interpret footage, main, and switch 25 to 30, click OK, and import the audio as well. This really poorly recorded audio from the iPhone is again something that's going to give this piece a bit more realism and a bit more believability. So dropping the footage in the new comp window, dropping the audio there as well. And let's create a new null object. New null. Call it Mocha track. Get back to Mocha for just one more second, and in here you have the export data options. And typically, if you're working on a proper project that you may want to refine later on, we would export it to a file, etc. Right now I'm not really going to bother. I'm going to export tracking data, export it as After Effects transform data. You can also use it with corner pin, but we're just going to use the transform, and copy it to clipboard. So I'm not even going to save it to a file. I can close Mocha at this point, don't save, I don't really care about it anymore. And with the Mocha track selected, do we have it in here? I don't even know. Edit, paste. Okay. And here's our tracking data. So if I right now expand the properties, we can see we have keyframes on anchor, position, scale, and rotation. Now you may notice something really strange in here is if we consider this null in here, let's change its color to, let's say, yellow so it's a bit more visible. If you consider this to be our tracking point, when we scrub through it, it doesn't really follow the camera, it just keeps on bouncing in its own corner. The reason for that is that Mocha exports more data than you actually need, and then you can either link your layers to it or use expressions, etc. So what we're gonna do is simply go to the frame 300, which what would be 300 in? Okay, I don't feel like calculating, let's just switch it to the frame view. So frame 300 is where we started our track, and I'm just going to turn off the anchor point, and now we can see it following the footage properly. Alright, so this is done, and all we have to do right now is add some UFOs. It's really that simple. So when we scrap through the footage, at one point there is a bird passing through. Okay, we can see it right there. And I'm going to use that as my visual reference of how the UFOs should look. Now, a lot of fake UFO videos fall flat on their face because the authors try to make the effects a bit too spectacular. They would add lens flares and they would add CGI models, And the more effort you put into such video, the more chance you get that people are going to spot this is a CGI, heavily processed footage. If you think about the famous London UFO sightings of 2011, which I believe were the doing of the Mill post-production trolls, I think they overdone the job. They tried to make it look a bit too real and ended up with something that reminded people of CGI in a motion picture rather than your classic messy video shot by amateur who was lucky enough to sight a UFO. So we're going to go quite opposite way, put very little effort in creating our animation and therefore making it much more believable. So okay, let's create a new solid. I'm going to sample a color from the sky and make it just a little bit brighter. So this is our sky. This is the brightness increase. And of course I made it way too big. Windows keep on popping out on other monitor as usual. Yeah, the size of our null has to be just like 10 by 10 pixels. It really needs to be very tiny. And let's zoom in a little bit. Apply the elliptical mask to it. Double clicking on it to make it a circle. And right now I can hide the helpers so we can see it better. We're gonna contract it a little bit by changing the expansion into negative region, making it really small, and then maybe adding just a little bit of feather to it. Again, I'm talking maybe 1 pixel. Okay, maybe this should be -2. Okay, let's see how does it look. Whoa, still way too big. Okay, -3. Maybe the feather should be just 0.5 pixel. Let's see how does it look. If we put it up in the sky right now, still way too strong. Okay, I'm just gonna scale it down at this point, let's say 50%, and maybe lower the opacity to something like 70. The less you see, the better in this case. This is quite opposite to what you may be used from other tutorials. We're not doing movie CGI in here, we're just trying to fool some UFO enthusiasts. Okay, so if I right now parent our UFO1 to the Mocha tracker, you will see that it sits in the sky throughout the video and it's tracked properly. Alright, so let's add some movement to it. Again, let's do something very simple, something that would look like a UFO moving through the scene. So I'm gonna bring my helpers back so I can just see what's happening. Maybe change the color to cyan. Yeah, cyan, brilliant idea. Blue sky and cyan layer. Orange, okay. So let's move it out of the screen first. Make it come from the left. If you want it to be really believable, you could make it fly behind the bridge or behind the buildings you may have in your footage. I'm just choosing a very easy way out, never making it interact with actual scenery of the video. Again, less work, still 10,000 views. Can't complain. So, click on the position, go forward a little bit, bring it into the scene, go forward a little bit. Maybe we can have it fly up. In here the camera is looking at the top, so the UFO could slow down and maybe make a little loop, a bit more, make it come down again. And let's see, in here we're panning away, so just before that we're gonna have it exit the screen. Okay, so right now it's a linear movement, so we need to change that. I'm gonna choose the convert vertex tool and switch all our keyframes into nice Bezier ones. Actually, let's choose an easier way. Right click, keyframe interpolation, come to the main screen and change the spatial interpolation to continuous Bezier. Alright, so right now we have a UFO moving in a nice smooth way through the scene. This angle may be a bit too sharp. We can smoothen it out a little bit. Let's see how does it go in here. The same thing. Make it look a little bit more like a realistic flight trajectory. And on top of that, I'm gonna, with all this keyframes selected, control click on them, and this way the UFO is not going to accelerate and decelerate too rapidly in between the frames. So let's just run a quick preview. This calculates very fast. It's a non-HD footage. We can see it coming in there, maybe. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit so we can see it better. So there we go, the UFO is coming into the screen, flying low in the clouds, going up. In here it slows down. Stays there for a moment. Flies back down. And exits the scene to the right. I think that that exiting action was a bit too slow. I wanted to make I want to make it feel like it's kind of escaping the screen, so maybe we can just bring this keyframe a bit sooner and have a look at it this way. So it comes down, yep, and it accelerates and flies away. And we lost the footage, right? Okay, so that's our first UFO, but it's not very exciting to have a single one, so let's add a few more. Alright, so for the other UFOs, what I'm gonna do is basically duplicate our main one, which, let's call it the mothership. Yes, that's quite a big name for a single pixel on the screen. And then we have UFO 1 in here. I'm gonna delete all the position keyframes, parent it to the mothership, offset it just a little bit, and then add some wiggle on its movement so that it quite literally runs circles around the parent. So position, wiggle. We need it to wiggle maybe once every 5 seconds at the magnitude of, let's say, 100. This is a bit of trial and error. Let's see how this one looks. Okay, maybe we should pick a good region to preview. So let's preview from here to, let's say, here. Okay, it's looking good. I think it could be a bit more dynamic. So let's increase the wiggle frequency to double of that we had before. Yeah, that looks much better. And let's just make... how many UFOs would you like to see today in the sky? Well, sir, I think around 5 would be fine. So we have the mothership, UFO 1, and we need 3 more. Duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. Done. So here is our swarm of UFOs flying together. Awesome. Now I think I made the spread a little bit too small. They're a bit too clustered. So let's delete these ones, increase the wiggle amplitude to 200 and make the copies again. Much more interesting. Okay, and another thing I would like to do is I would like the mothership to be a bit stronger, a bit more visible. So I'm just going to go to scale and change it to 75%. Whoops, of course I forgot that that's gonna scale all the children as well. Let's unparent them, change the scale to 75. It's here, very little difference. So this was 52 and we bring it to 75. and parent them back. Okay, and actually what we could do is maybe make another copy of the mothership and just lower the opacity on that, just to make it a bit more prominent in the sky. Alright, so this is our UFO swarm, flying in its interesting formation. Now I think the only problem I have with it right now is that they all seem to be trailing behind the first one, and that's because they're all based on the same offsets. I'm just gonna distribute them a little bit, maybe bring this one a bit up, this one a bit left, and this one somewhere here. Let's have a look at it again. Yeah, now it looks like they're flying around the mothership rather than just behind it. Okay, so let's take our UFO layers and the Mocha track and pre-compose it. So I'm gonna just press Ctrl-Shift-C, call it UFOs, and one of the problems that you may run into when doing such videos is when the UFOs fly over the clouds. Let's see, right here. They become a bit too bright. We would like them to interact with the clouds a little bit better. So what I'm gonna do here is simply change the mode from normal to lighten and lower the opacity a bit further. So let's say 50%. And this way, if the cloud layer is brighter than UFOs, it's going to actually obscure them, so we're not gonna be able to see them. So you can see when you look at this bird, for example, in here, yeah, those are UFOs, this is a bird. I mean, you see very, very similar visually. We can't see it when it enters the clouds. And that's the look we're after. And we're done. That's the entire process. I wouldn't recommend applying any kind of motion blur to it, because if we do so, the UFOs will probably disappear. Perhaps we can apply a tiny bit of blur. I mean, they look a little bit too sharp. So let's just go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, and not even use Gaussian blur, just go with fast blur. Blur it by, let's say, 0.5 pixel. You know, our original video isn't that sharp. It has a lot of artifacts, so we want to kind of mimic it. So this is the original UFO comp, and this is the same thing, blurred. And also go to the point when they exit the screen and just trim the composition. So that's the entire process. I mean, I know this has been quite an unusual tutorial. You're probably used to a bit more advanced techniques, but I just wanted to show you how to do something really quick and really fun without putting too much effort into it. So as your homework, what I would like you to do is right now grab your telephone, go outside, shoot some sky, do the same thing and upload it to YouTube and give me the link, and let's see how many fake UFO sightings we can create together. Now, I think an important element of doing such, actually let it play in the background, an important element of doing such video is creating a good fake persona. Don't put it on the same account that you would put all your other After Effects experiments. People are immediately going to recognize that it's fake. Create a new one. You can sign up for Hotmail, create a fake email account that you're going to use just to create a YouTube account or to get some responses, and go ahead, make a video, and let's see if you can beat my record of 10,500 views. Before I go, I just wanted to clarify one more thing. Now, what's my actual stance on the whole concept of UFOs and extraterrestrials? Now, I definitely believe that universe is way too big and way too vast not to have place for life in other places. Most likely there is an intelligent life out there. I just don't like sensationalism and interpreting what's basically a very short clip made in After Effects as a sign of end of days. I believe I had some comments on my YouTube video and on other channels that I posted it on, talking about UFO sightings being the sign of the impending apocalypse. And somebody contacted me with some footage of airplanes, claiming that those are not actual airplanes but the camouflage techniques used by extraterrestrials, and bonkers stuff. I have no idea if extraterrestrials ever visited our planet, but I have a feeling that if they did, they would either have the technology to hide much better, or they would be open about it and contact us directly. I think assuming that we have the alien intelligence that's capable of interstellar travel, visiting Earth, and us being smart enough to see through their camouflage techniques, it's pretty ridiculous. I mean, if these guys are able to come here, they probably would be able to hide from us as well. That's just my 3 cents on what I think is the truth before the UFOs. But when it comes to YouTube clips, well, faked. Every single one of them. Alright, have fun with this new technique for QubaHQ. I'm Kuba Michalski, and I'll see you next time.